Everybody, Stephen Lowisz here with GTM Secrets. Everything go to market, sales, marketing, demand gen, content, analytics, RevOps, you name it. I've had someone on talking about it. All sorts of different people, enterprise, startup, small business. We have a guy on here that's kind of both SMB and enterprise. I have Rob Testa, who both owns a small business as well as works in demand gen at Samsung. So really small company. Rob, do you mind giving a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. So excited to be here. Just a little bit about myself is I've been working in marketing for a number of years. I transitioned a little bit more for demand generation because I do like working with both the marketing guys and the sales guys and kind of bridging that link together. Have a background in working for startups and big companies such as Samsung. So have a little bit of experience in everything. But right now, again, focusing primarily on that demand generation side of things and getting some really good quality leads for everyone.
Love it. First of all, you're specifically within Samsung SDS, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So that's a little different than Samsung Electronics. Yeah, glad you asked. So Samsung Electronics obviously focuses on the electronics like phones and things like that. Samsung SDS is a little different. We focus a little bit more on the software side of things. So mobile device management, we make sure that if if large corporations need to manage devices, not just cell phones, but computers, laptops, drones even, that we have the software in order to do that. We also have implemented some AI capabilities to these things. So offboarding or onboarding companies or employees, you can do that at scale. And it also allows us to monitor supply chain operations. So we work with a lot of manufacturing companies to see where there's potential weaknesses in supply chains and where the opportunities are to kind of deviate away from those, hindrances in order to make sure that operations continue to run smoothly. So I'm in charge of a few different software developments within Samsung SDS, but it's all cool stuff, really interesting, especially since I'm a big advocate for AI too. So it's cool to see that those things are being implemented there too.
Does it hurt your feelings if I'm using an iPhone?
It does not. I just feel a little sorry for you, but it's okay.
That's fair. I flip-flop every couple years. I've had many of the Samsung Notes. Okay, so before I ask you a bunch of demand gen questions, I want to set the frame a little bit. If you're selling, MDM and whatnot, device management, are you selling to enterprise corporate IT? Are you selling into managed service providers? Yes to both. Who's your ICP?
Yeah, so it is a yes to both, but this programs and technology is fairly new. So we are kind of breaking into these sectors now. So we're utilizing some of our partners to kind of go into it that way, but our ICPs are mostly enterprise IT guys. So we're going after people that need us for solutions for not only budget management too, to make things a little cheaper for them, so their IT guys aren't going crazy trying to manage all these devices at once, but just to streamline it too. So again, the experience for the user themselves is also a lot easier and just more pleasant.
Love it. Now, demand gen, there's no real definition for it, right? It could be on the sales side, and it's really a fancy way of saying outbound, which is fine. And then there's more on the marketing side, like PPC and so forth, right? Which bucket are you in?
Well, I'm in a little bit of both. So with demand gen, the way that I like to kind of talk about it is that this position is more bridging the gap between marketing and sales, right? So we're going with the marketing campaigns. We're figuring out the strategies that are going to fill that top of funnel, mid funnel, and then we're connecting it to that bottom of the funnel so that the sales teams get these leads. And not only do they get a good amount of leads, but they get good qualified leads. So coming up with that happy medium of trying to figure out how to get a good amount of leads to come in through the funnel, and then how to transition them over to the sales where they're able to contact them from there. So a lot of PPC campaigns, a lot of content syndication campaigns, paid Google, LinkedIn campaigns, and then also just utilizing things like, the classic SEO, blogs, white papers to bring the people to the website too. So it's a combination of everything. It encompasses the target audience completely, so that way if they're interested or not. Because again, we're trying to make sure that the leads and the MQLs that are coming through are actually qualified to go onto sales.
Yeah, I say it a lot. Leads aren't created equal. And yet I think a lot of marketers treat every MQL as the holy grail. Okay, so Samsung itself has a lot of resources. I mean, obviously a lot, right? Don't name numbers, obviously, but would you have the budgets for your campaigns that I would expect at a big company like Samsung? Does it tend to be a little smaller and scrappier? Like, just give me a rough idea. What would the perception be? Is it right or wrong?
Yeah, so the budgeting is actually pretty interesting here because, again, we are a fairly new branch on Samsung. So I go ahead and say that we're have a large budget per se. However, the way that we go around it is that we do implement new strategies, and if they are performing well, then we increase the budget accordingly. So we're given a budget that I come up with where I'm like, hey, I'll do the math. I'll see how much it is for the CPC or how much the clicks are, what the conversion rates are, and then kind of reverse engineering that and saying, okay, if we're trying to hit X amount of leads for the month, and we know that out of these leads, 10% convert over to good MQLs, then we need a budget of this amount. We kind of plan it out before going to market. And then once we, go live, we do a lot of data readings and say, hey, this is working or it's not working. Let's try this instead. Let's do some A/B testing. And then if the campaign is a success, then it says, okay, let's ramp it up and go all in. But if it's not, then we say, okay, we'll take our lessons learned here and we'll pivot over to another strategy and see how that goes. Again, it is a little interesting because it is a little newer. So, but I like it because it's almost like being in a startup, but you have that big backing behind you. So you're able to, move forward swiftly, but also have some kind of backing and strategy behind it.
Excuse me. I can't get rid of this cough. We're going to cut that out. Anyways, okay, that makes sense. Now, you obviously have brand recognition with a name like Samsung. When you send someone an email or you're running an ad, I would assume that the brand equity gives you a significant leg up. But again, tell me, is the perception as what I'm describing, or is it like, this is new, I don't want to deal with new stuff, I like what I'm using, everyone's got a solution for what you're doing, maybe not as good, but like anything, everyone's already got a solution, even for, web de-anonymization like I do, right? Is my perception accurate or is it not?
Yeah, so having a big name is definitely useful, but a lot of people know us for Samsung Electronics, right? So if you're trying to talk to the audience that we're trying to kind of target, a lot of times they're like, what the heck is this? Like Samsung, I'm not interested in it, or they'll open it up, but like not understand what the messaging is. So it is a little difficult in that aspect because we're trying to parlay a new message, which is something that isn't what Samsung is associated with. So that's the biggest challenge, is that, yeah, we do have that brand recognition, but it's not, it would be great if I can just say, oh yeah, here's a new phone, and everyone would be like, I totally understand what that is. Like, it's Samsung, obviously. But being on the SDS part of things, you have to really explain it to people. And because of that, that's why I utilize a lot of things like videos on those first touch bases to make sure that people that we're targeting understand Samsung SDS it's a product, but it's a software, it's a managed product. It's not something like, it's not electronic. So,
right.
Yeah, so making sure that we have those kind of good contents that explain these, and also just using some like white papers and content and blogs to, again, just further explain it, allows us to kind of get people to hook onto it and see who's interested or not.
Makes sense. It makes perfect sense. You and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum. On one side, I'm a startup and you're a behemoth. From a budget standpoint, completely opposite ends, but we're both taking something new to market. And what you just talked about was having to educate people on, well, this is cool new tech. This is AI, MDM, or whatever your spin is, right? That's really difficult. I think what we're doing is groundbreaking and kicks the ass of some really big companies. But when people don't know that what you're talking about exists or is possible, it's really hard to get them to have a serious conversation. So what are some of the main demand gen efforts that you have found effective? Is it more inbound or outbound? Is it omni-channel, ABM? Whatever buzzwords are applicable here.
Yeah. So we did a number of strategies to see what kind of gave us the best results. So one thing that does give us some really good, engagement would be doing some events. So roundtable events, going to conferences and things like that, just having a little bit more outbound, I would say, with their sales rep and marketing to see if we can align and speak with people face to face to get that connection. Another thing too is we do some ABM strategies where we'll go more on the industry and then target to specific companies that we see are interested in it. And the way that we come up with that is that we utilize videos. Like I said before, we'll come up with a specific industry branded video. We'll play it on some social media mediums, and then we'll see who engages with those videos. If someone's watching that video 75% of the time or almost all the way through, then we know that they're fairly engaged with us, and we'll take that data and metrics and say, hey, this company has watched us multiple times. It's our target, it's our ICP. It's the people that we're going after. So we'll see what company that is, and then we'll create a outbound email or use Zoom info and get their information that way and see if we can connect with them there.
How do you know if they're interacting with a video on like social? You can't I'm in the de-anonymization space. That's not possible from everything I've ever learned. How do you do that?
So if you run a LinkedIn campaign, for example, and you have a video that plays, you have your engagement or you have your KPI result, not for website clicks or things like that. But what you're really trying to do is look for video view rate. You can then download your video view, or you can look at your video view rates on the statistics on there and say if it was watched 25% of the time, 50% of the time, 75% of the time. But LinkedIn does give you some metrics as to the industry, the company, the job titles, and things like that people are looking at. So you can definitely use it if you're doing a paid social media campaign. On organic, a little different.
Yeah, that I get. No, so I guess to clarify, you're seeing, I know LinkedIn reporting will tell you, hey, Microsoft was looking at X, Y, Z, and you can start to make some inferences, like an intern probably wasn't watching this, but you don't know if it's the CIO, the VP of IT, etc. But you at least identified an account that is engaged. Is that am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly, yeah. So we'll see that, for example, if we are running an ad and it's targeting a tech sector, and we see that Microsoft is watching it, and it tells you you can rank it to say who's the company that's looking this video the most, and we see that they are ranked in the top 5, then we know that they're interested enough where if we do an outreach campaign to one of the directors or someone that's in the IT sector there, then they're more likely to engage with us because now they know us more. We know that they're like, oh, what is this? Maybe they're interested. If not, it's fine because the video view costs us 2 cents, so it's not really expensive. But at the same time, it allows us to kind of narrow down and directly go after what account we want to go after without throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Video impressions are fairly cheap. But I have seen a lot of funny memes, and I agree. You spend 10 grand on LinkedIn ads, you got 16 clicks, and you got 1 lead. It's pretty expensive. As a platform, it's pretty expensive compared to Meta and whatnot. But obviously for B2B, you can't beat it.
Exactly, yeah.
So I hear you loud and clear. Now, we did not talk about this beforehand, but I have an interesting question. So I saw a post yesterday. It went viral. I don't know the guy's name, but somebody put up a post saying sales should sit under marketing. And the entire idea was that, okay, you're generating demand, you're responsible for revenue, etc., but you're not actually able to affect closing a deal. So you're held accountable to something that you have no control over. I get the argument. I'm still wrapping my head around it, but you being the bridge between sales and marketing, which demand gen typically is, how's the org set up? I mean, don't share details you can't. And how do you envision people start bridging sales and marketing better? People have talked about it for a decade, but I still don't see people doing it very well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point that you bring up. And for me, I do agree that sales doesn't need to necessarily be under marketing. but they should definitely be under the same umbrella. So I think that just as often as you're meeting the people on your marketing team, you should be meeting people on the sales team to make sure that everything's in alignment. The targets that we're going after, or the targets that sales knows that you're going after, because nothing's worse than sending over some MQLs and you're like, hey, here's some people that we got for you. And they're like, we're not even going in healthcare industry. Why are you sending us people from the healthcare industry? And now you just waste all this time and effort and things like that. And also sending over poor leads as well. So even if you are going in the right industry and you're like, hey, how are these guys? And they're like, these are someone that's in, I don't know, people department. Why? This is not the target audience whatsoever. So I think that that marketing and sales should be working parallel with each other, like hand in hand underneath that same umbrella. And I think that that's where demand marketing kind of evolved into. And I think that it should kind of keep evolving to incorporate everyone together so that everyone has that clear, concise goal in mind, and that everyone can work together to make sure that they're obtaining that goal.
Makes perfect sense. But fair enough. Now, you mentioned ABM a little bit. Is that a core focus of yours? It's a big buzzword nonstop. Has been for years. That's not new. Do you guys do ABM? What kind of tools do you use, if you're allowed to share? How big of a focus is that?
Yeah, we do ABM, trying to dabble a little bit in more of a product led. So that's a goal of mine here, but that's a little further down the line. But ABM, the biggest thing with that is to be aligned with sales and making sure that you are going after that proper accounts. The tools that we use obviously is, again, LinkedIn metrics and things like that. So we get the data to see like, okay, who's engaging with us. We use Zoom info to get anything that we need on that side of things, like contact information or whatnot. And then we're just using Google Analytics to see like, how people are coming to our website, where they're going after our website. Did they see your ads or things aligned on that side? So just making sure that we're utilizing the data and that we're kind of, again, keeping things in line with what everyone agreed with, so that all our work and efforts are not going to waste, essentially.
So ABM means a lot of things to a lot of people. It could just mean emailing multiple decision makers in the same company. It could be trying to go after an entire department's org chart with ads, emails, cold calls, you name it. What does the actual process look like if you say, okay, here's a target account? What do you do with that target account?
Yeah, so if we go with we did a ABM campaign a couple of months ago, and we were like, hey, let's go after this one specific company as opposed to an industry. So we reallocated our budget instead of going so like broad to start and then like go down to specific companies. We're like, let's go after only this company. So we did a little bit of research to see like what's their pain point, where can we help, and how can we get that message across. So going into ABM, I think one important factor is that it's not about you, it's about the account that you're going after. So you want to make sure that you're keeping them top of mind. Like no one wants to get an outreach. It's kind of like a cold call, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm here to help you. And it's like, I didn't even ask for help. Why are you contacting me? Like what the heck is going on? So you want to make sure that when you're reaching out and putting the message first, it's like, again, focused on the account. So you want to make sure that everything is in alignment there. The second thing too is that you want to personalize it for that account. So you don't want to walk in and just say, here's my brand, here's my company, here's me. It's all about me. I'm the best. I'm the coolest. Check me out. Because again, no one likes to see this kind of like bragging in their face. So you want to flip it where you come in with their branding or their name and their kind of guidelines, and you say, hey, we already know you. We think you're great. Let's try to work something out together. And we're here to help for, that this is a pain point here, and we're here to help. And if you need us, let's get it done. So just the way that you approach it should be different, and that it should be focused more on the account, especially if you're going after just one account. Because again, if you start broad, different story, different strategy, but one account, you can then all meet to get together and say, here's the messaging, here's the value proposition, here's here's the pain point that we can help with, and here's who we can connect with to get it done.
Makes sense. Now, I know we focus mostly on Samsung, right? That's your day-to-day job, but we were talking before, you also run a small business that does demand gen for SMBs.
Yes.
So half of our audience is enterprise sales and whatnot. Now I want to steer it more towards the other half, which are startups, SMBs, etc. Not really local businesses, but startups like myself and others. If you have a very restricted budget and no brand equity, which is where everyone starts, how do you start to formulate that first go-to-market plan or demand gen plan? Like, what are the things that you would be looking at? It's easy to say, go run Google and LinkedIn ads and hope that it works. How do you make that more intelligent?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that if you have no budget, you have to learn patience because your time is your payment then, right? So one thing that you should definitely be starting with is going for the more organic kind of route. So focus more time on your SEO, make sure that it's really strong so that when people are searching your solutions or your products or whatever, that you're coming up and you're relevant. Make sure that you're registered on different sites and make sure that you're active on these sites. So back in the day, I'll show how old I am, but social media wasn't a big thing for businesses. And I remember being in school and being like, we should be focusing on putting our business on social media. And one of my first jobs, I remember my boss telling me like, oh, my grandson has social media. Why should our business go on here? And that doesn't make any sense. But now, as you see, the landscape has changed and social media is a big driver for businesses. So, start getting involved on that, start creating posts, but more importantly, create things that kind of link to your target audience. So the one thing that also drives me crazy is when people use social media as a billboard, like, oh, here's my free product. Like, look at me again, like this, it's all about me and whatnot. But social media is meant to be social. So try to make some good content that actually syncs your business and your solution with the target audience and not the other way around. And then just make sure that you can kind of focus on getting some reviews from people that you're already working with. So one of the biggest things in marketing is, word of mouth marketing. They always say that's like the number one thing that's going to drive customers to your business. So you want to ask your happy customers if they don't mind leaving a review for you on Google, LinkedIn, social media, wherever they can leave a review, because that is going to just give you some really valuable content and proposals at the end of the day. So when people, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm looking at something and I'm purchasing it, I'm always looking at the reviews and being like, oh, is it good? Is it bad? What are other people saying? So if you don't have budget, try your best to kind of just engage with your current customers and go a little bit more organically. And then once you have enough budget from these new prospects, then you can ramp it up a little bit and do some quick campaigns.
Yeah. Going back to by the way, you did date yourself a little bit. You're talking to a 29-year-old. That being said, going to your comment about LinkedIn, don't just self-promote. I totally agree. And I've noticed that there are two types of posts that get no impressions if you look at the stats. One is self-promo. The other one is fake inspirational quotes that you made up on the fly or Googled. Neither one of those actually get impressions, unless maybe you're Tony Robbins. I don't know. No, that makes perfect sense. And I do like what you said. Make sure you're listed everywhere. We just went through an exercise a few weeks ago to make sure that we at least get a backlink from every single marketplace, SaaS review site under the sun. Even the ones that we have no inclination of getting any reviews for, at least you got the backlink, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So hear you loud and clear on there. Now, if you are going to start PPC, how do you pick what channel?
Yeah. So if you're going to do PPC, it goes with what your business is, right? So if you're B2B, it's way different than B2C. And if your industry is, say, food industry, right? Way different than hospitality, way different medical. So it all really depends on where you're trying to, what your market is. So I would say if you're going to go more like B2C, then start with Google, get some of those ads going, and then go more on like the Instagram side of things. TikTok is huge, so definitely try to engage on the TikTok audience. Snapchat is really great too, and they give really good insights as well. So go a little bit more on those like shareable, I would say, mediums. Whereas if you're B2C, B2B, sorry, then it would be more of LinkedIn, Bing ads, things where people are kind of forced to use those Microsoft things when they're in their office. So yeah, it all really depends on the market. And I would say one thing too, which is obviously evolving and very big right now, is you can utilize things like LLMs to try to help you kind of navigate through this. So ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, whatever you're into, go ahead and it's easy to just ask it and say, this is my business, this is my target audience, I want to start doing some advertising. You could even give it your budget, and it can kind of help you guide in the right position. That being said, I always tell people that you should be looking at AI as a friend and not like your boss. So don't do exactly what it tells you to do, because at the end of the day, it's just kind of spitting things back at you, and you can always make it say what you want it to say. So it's not 100% accurate. But you can use it as a guide to say, okay, here's a good starting point, or, haven't really thought about doing PPC campaigns on Snapchat, and maybe it's suggested and you're like, hey, that's a good idea actually. And how much does it cost? What's the CPC on Snapchat? I don't know. I've never done it before. So you can ask it, what's the industry standard? And it can give you a rough guideline without you having to research and stuff. And you can go from there and say, okay, this is my budget. I'll try this and whatnot.
Makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Speaking of LLMs, I was kind of dumbfounded. I spoke with an investor yesterday. We're raising our seed round, and I asked him how he found us, because he reached out to me. ChatGPT. When he looked up, my category, I was the very first one in GPT to pop up. I can't tell you how we pulled that off, but that's pretty awesome. I've never met somebody. Yeah, I've never met somebody that knows how to rank in LLMs yet, but somehow we pulled it out of our rears. Rob, this is super interesting. We try to keep these commute-worthy time length. Although I think I could talk to you for 3 more hours here. I'm a demand gen guy. If people want to connect with you, and by the way, what's the name of your small business?
My small business is called RKT MKTG. So it's an abbreviation for Rocket Marketing, but yeah, RKT MKTG.
All right, so everybody go check it out. I'll plug it for you since you didn't, which is fine. Rob, where is the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, definitely link up with me on LinkedIn. You can find me. My name's Rob Testa. So you'll see, I think I'm actually wearing the same shirt here than I am on my LinkedIn profile. So you'll see me there. And yeah, feel free to send me a chat. Or if you want to go to my website, it's www.rktmktg.com. You could always send me a message there, but I'll most likely respond on LinkedIn because I'm on there all the time doing ads. So you can definitely find me there.
Fair enough. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.